we deserve to understand what's actually happening underneath our symptoms. And in this workshop, we're going to be talking about, why the body stops healing. We're going to talk about nervous system, survival patterns, and the way stress and emotions affect your body, the identity of fear conditioning, and what it actually looks like to create calm in your body. What if our bodies are not actually attacking us? Because it honestly doesn't really make a lot of sense.
And when you're diagnosed with something like MS, you assume the doctors know best. You assume that they understand your body better than you do. All right. Hi, everybody. Looking back, one of the biggest shifts for both of us was realizing how afraid we had become of our own bodies. We were analyzing every symptom, waiting for the next thing to happen, bracing for what the next progression was going to look like. And that constant fear changes the way your body functions.
And we know that because we believed it too. We sat in those doctors' offices, we listened to the neurologists, we heard the terrifying statistics, we heard all the medications we needed to be on because this disease is so unpredictable and it's progressive and something that we would need to manage the rest of our lives.
Yeah. And when I was first diagnosed, I don't know about you, but I didn't question anything. Why would I? Right? He's a neurologist. He knows what he's talking about. And when you're diagnosed with something like MS, you assume the doctors know best. You assume that they understand your body
It's
better than
not
you do.
because, something is feeling off. It's not because the symptoms weren't real, because the entire approach was centered around fear. We had to deal with that.
Fear. Oh, yeah. Fear of anything being too stressful. When we're told, oh, don't get stressed, it will cause an exacerbation. So you start fearing anything that could be stressful, anything that could turn into a symptom. Fear of the disease progressing, lesions. What the hell are lesions? I remember taking remember Catholic school when we learned about the lepers and leprosy. That was the only reference I had to lesions. I was so afraid of that word, and then you learn it's just a scary word for scars. I had the fear of food. Should I eat this? Should I not eat this? What, like, is it going to make it worse? Fear of flare ups. Am I just tired, or is this beginning of a flare? And it's like women with MS are just taught to constantly monitor themselves for danger. You're just constantly taught to live in fear.
Yeah, and when your nervous system is living in that kind of fear 24/7, which I know I'm going to say 98% of the women diagnosed with MS are in constant nervous system dysregulation. You can't heal if you're not feeling safe and if you are dysregulated in the nervous system.
And that's what I want everybody to know, that we know how real this experience is because we both lived it. Tracy and I were both diagnosed with MS, and today we both live completely symptom free. We're just saying now that there's more going on underneath the symptoms than women are typically told. And for us, learning about those deeper layers and what causes symptoms, that's when everything started to change.
And, Janine and I both followed the rules in the beginning. We did what we were told, but we ended up researching. We didn't know each other until a few years ago, but we found out that we had kind of the same path, and we were constantly researching and obsessing over symptoms and healing and understanding what was coming next in our path.
And mentally, when you live in that kind of fear, it changes you. Because once you're told that your body is attacking itself, it becomes really hard to feel safe inside your own body. You start second guessing every sensation. What was that? Was that a symptom? Oh, why am I tired? Is that something? Am I going into an exacerbation? And then your body becomes the enemy.
Absolutely. And I know for both of us, we had this moment where something inside, said, what if it's not what the doctors are saying? What if our bodies are not actually attacking us? Because it honestly doesn't really make a lot of sense. And, it's not that we were in denial, but we understood deep down that something had to make more sense than just the body simply malfunctioning for no reason at all.
And yeah, and I don't know about you, but I didn't trust this in the beginning, but when the doctor first said it looks like multiple sclerosis. And I thought, my God, what is that? My only reference to MS was Annette Funicello. And I thought, oh my God, what is that? And he said, well, that's when your body's attacking itself. And right away I heard, no, it's not. But then that was the last time I ever thought about it, because we're trained to listen to the doctor. We're trained not to listen to our own intuition. The deeper I went into nervous system work, the deeper I understood the stress physiology, trauma, survival patterns, that's when pieces started falling into place. I think we both started noticing patterns that nobody ever talked to us about before. And that's when things started making sense. That's when shit began to change, when I stopped adopting the narrative that was given to me and I started listening to myself, and I was guided towards more of how the body actually behaves and responds when it's stuck in fight or flight.
Yeah, that's really important for understanding your next steps because, symptoms are not, it's not proof that you have a disease because your body is fighting you or it's working against you. It's literally signals that your body has adapted to over years, and those signals come from emotions and the mental and then lastly the physical. And so we started to understand this on a much deeper and personal level.
Trace, do you remember this? Like in the beginning, like the symptoms didn't just come out of nowhere. You remember it starts with an overload. It starts years before the diagnosis. Remember always having to be the strong one, the one who got shit done, the one who took care of everybody else, never slowing down because there was never enough time, or carrying your own stress and everybody else's, and swallowing your emotions, trying to be the strong one, living in survival mode for so long that your body never gets a break. We got the intuition, the little thoughts of, I can't continue living like this. Something's got to give. And I bet that's what started to show up for you as well. I'm guessing right before symptoms got loud.
Absolutely. I mean, there's stubbornness in there and refusal to believe that there's no cause or cure really made me want to dive in. And then understanding that, I see this in pretty much every woman who's diagnosed with uh, MS, is that they're all to some degree in survival mode. And that is usually starting even before they get diagnosed. But again, like Janine said, we're just pushing and pushing forward and moving and not wanting to stop because we don't feel that we can, uh, we can do something about it at the time.
And yet nobody's talking about the nervous system piece. Nobody's talking to you about what living in survival mode actually does to your nervous system and how it prevents healing. And at some point, we started asking a completely different question. Not what's wrong with my body, that's what we were used to asking, but has my body ever felt safe? Have you ever felt safe? And I could honestly answer, no, I've never felt safe. I've always felt like I needed to take care of everything. The nervous system that's in constant fight or flight functions very differently than one that feels safe. Healing doesn't happen in fight or flight. It can. All the available energy in your body is used for bracing and scanning for the next shit show that's about to happen. It's only when the nervous system feels safe that it can use its available energy for healing.
And sadly, one of the hardest parts is realizing that our diagnosis has slowly become our identity. We would say, I have MS, but I always say it's not like I went to the store and bought it. And so I was diagnosed with it. I don't have it. I didn't purposely take it on. And so without, realizing it, it slowly became the center of everything. But I was also in constant searching mode and researching mode to figure out how I can uncover what I really need to do to heal. And, you you start to realize that there's so much that you can actually do.
Without even realizing it, MS becomes the center of everything. It becomes who you are. And now everything is revolving around your MS. And I did the same thing, constantly researching, reading other people's horror stories. I didn't even know how bad it could be until I went online and read all these stories that just terrified me. And then you begin to watch for symptoms, wonder how soon it's going to be before you're not able to do things for yourself anymore. And eventually that just becomes who you are. And then you go to those typical support groups and they just reinforce that way of thinking. They reinforce the fear and that way of being. Nothing ever prompts you to think differently or ask different questions.
Yeah, and Janine, I don't know which is worse, the doctor's telling you how horrible it's going to be, or reading other people's horror stories. And the support groups they were okay, but I didn't get a whole lot from them. It's just healing requires a completely different internal and external environment.
In the years to come, there's going to be a completely different story around MS because people are finally starting to ask different questions and they're starting to wonder, wait a second, how is the body attacking itself? And we're finally understanding through science, through mainstream media that, you know what, maybe there's more to this. Maybe the body isn't attacking itself. Healing requires a completely different internal environment and it requires a completely different conversation. And that's why we put this workshop together. We called it the MS Rebellion because we are rebelling against everything that the MS world has ever told us. But we're not giving false hope and we're not telling women to ignore symptoms just by thinking positive. It's not just thinking positive. It's actually nothing like that. It's not a magic solution because there isn't one. And we just want people to know that there is a way out of the hell. It's through nervous system regulation.
We deserve to understand what's actually happening underneath our symptoms. And in this workshop, we're going to be talking about, why the body stops healing. We're going to talk about nervous system, survival patterns, and the way stress and emotions affect your body, the identity of fear conditioning, and what it actually looks like to create calm in your body. And, this doesn't just translate to MS, this can heal literally anything.
And we are teaching this from the perspective of two women who have healed their symptoms. We live completely symptom free now. So we know what it was like when we had symptoms and we know what you're going through. And it's not something that's going to happen overnight, but there is a way to understand your body differently. So if any of this conversation felt like it resonated or it felt familiar to you, you might want to join us. We start next week. It's June 1st. We go Monday through Thursday. And if you want to register, you don't have to register. We're going to show up right in the Healing Multiple Sclerosis Naturally Facebook group. We're going to show up there. But if you can't make it or if you want the recording, we're going to have that emailed to you if you register and give us your email address. And Trace, I would like to say that we're going to do that every day on time, but with the way life goes and me having a 4-year-old, we'll see how that goes. But so let's just say by the end of the week, you will have all of the recordings emailed to you.
Absolutely. So this starts June 1st. We would love to have you there. I know in the registration, Janine, correct, they can ask a question in there that we will likely answer. So you might want to stay tuned for that.
We have a lot of questions that are coming in through that registration form. So Chase, we might have to think about doing like an extra day where we just tackle the questions. But I did want to say, these conversations that we have in the workshop, this is everything that we wish we would have heard back when we had symptoms. If we could, hindsight's 2020, if we can go back in time and talk to that version of ourselves, this is what we would say. I want to pose a question before we go. I want to hear from everybody. If you're watching the replay, then just put it in the comments. We can still see the notification. But what is the one thing about the traditional MS narrative that never fully sat right with you? Remember when I said, as soon as I got those words, multiple sclerosis, your body is attacking itself, my initial thought was, that doesn't feel right. That's not right. That's not happening. But I scoffed at it and went, oh, what do I know? So I'm wondering in the audience here, what was the thing that stood out to you that went against the traditional MS narrative that you're now starting to go, I wonder where that came from. That sounds like something I should have followed.
Love that question. I can't wait to see the answers.
I know. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is just the prequel to the workshop to give you an idea of like how Tracy and I interact and what we're going to be talking about. Any questions, put them in the comments. We're going to see you again this week, and we will go live Monday, June 1st, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Central Time. All right, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye. Bye.